Brody here. Welcome back to Teacher Tip Tuesday. Now you're going to be hearing my dad say some tips, so let's go. Action!
Good job, bro. Bro's, it's election day here in New Jersey, so I have the day off, and I missed Brody, so I went and got him out of school early just to have some time off with me. So since I'm not at school today, I thought I'd shoot this out in the garden. That just means I have to contend with the ongoing flight path that is directly above my house. Future, my goal is to live on a farm, and then I will not live near any trains, planes, or automobiles. So anyway, this week's Teacher Tip Tuesday, I'm thinking a lot about the end of the year, and I've been thinking about things that I tell especially new teachers to sort of be mindful for and to get ready for at the end of the year. And so I thought I'd share with you just 4 really quick tips on like things I do at the end of the year to make sure that I'm on offense and to end my year a little bit less more stressful than it typically ends. So here we go. Number 1. So my first tip is do not let your grades go until the last day of the marking period of the trimester or the semester or whatever it is that you're teaching. And the reason for that is you want to create a buffer. And if you've probably seen already this year that when you let kids hand things in on the last minute or in the last minute, you have kids rushing, you have kids asking for extra credit or to make stuff up. And you want to get ahead of that. I let the students know when my last day is, but for me, my last day will be next Tuesday. So we have off today, we have off Friday and Monday for Memorial Day, which is a celebration we have here in the United States. And so I let my students know that any work that can still be handed in is handed in on Tuesday. So that builds a buffer in for me because I have Wednesday and Thursday in the class next week, and then I have Friday, we have some kind of like activity day that we're doing with the school. And that buffer is important because if you have a kid who's habitually late or they're absent all the time, you know, those students tend to like want to scramble at the end of the year, and you're giving that hard out of like, nope, if you're not in school, if you came in late, then this is the time that you have to make that work up. Don't go past that. And also, if you have someone who was sick or who was out for like bereavement or something like that, it builds in that safety where they don't feel like they're out of time. They know that there's still a couple of more days. And really, in those cases, I usually just put incompletes in for students that were sick or have lost someone or something was going on in their lives that they weren't in control of. And I'm allowed to put their grades in later anyway. But that buffer comes in really handy. And while we're on the topic of grade books, tip number 2. Tip numero 2 is fill in any gaps that are in your grade book. I find that I always run into some sort of gap along the way where there's like a kid that was out, a kid that was supposed to make something up, a student that I thought was going to hand something in late, and so I didn't put in the 0, I didn't put in missing, I just left it open. It's a close one. The bee like landed right on my shoulder and then I handled it well. I didn't get too scared or anything. Maybe I did. Anyway, where was I? You don't, the gist of this tip is that you don't want to create any sort of false hope or any sort of like, you know, a parent finally looking at the grade book wondering like, why isn't that grade in there? Or I thought you were still going to put that in there. Or I thought there were these 3 blanks where you didn't put anything. Why can't my son or daughter make that up now? So it's just a good idea to have all of those things in there. And then whenever a student misses an assignment, whenever they get a particularly low grade or a particularly good grade, I always put a comment in there as well. So we have an online grade book. We use Power School, and that gives me the ability to let someone know that if your student got a 0, did they get a 0 because they got all of the answers wrong? Or did they get a 0 because they talked during the assessment? Did they get a 0 because they never made it up? Do they have an 80 right now, but they had a 70 before and they chose to come in and retake the assessment and now they have a higher grade and that shows initiative? I'd like to make sure that those comments are in there, and especially if something was missing, you know, letting folks know that the student had this many days or weeks to make this work up and they just didn't do it, and making sure you're in clear contact with parents. Just helps you to avoid any unnecessary or uncomfortable conversations at the end of the year. All right, and on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is simple. Clean out your classroom. I get with the sense of like not having enough resources, right? Like I live in a world where like resources are often very limited. Teaching in Philly, we've had years where the state or the city has decided to take back some of our funding that we've gotten for one reason or another. So you thought you had this much money to spend, or you thought that that book order was going to come in, or that you could order things later in the year, and then you can't. But even with that being the state of things, your room becomes this like hodgepodge of crap. So it's like cleaning out your drawers, getting rid of those half-chewed pencils or those TD Bank pens, because Got a lot of those. Those are just free pens that you get from the bank that have about as much ink as you can use to write one check, but they're free. Get rid of the expo markers that you thought were going to write a little bit longer, but now they just write in a very, very light shade of gray instead of the black in which they were created to write in. Getting rid of old papers, old assignments, extra copies of tests, and packets that were done long ago. The books that are falling apart, the desks that are falling apart. Try and remove as much of that stuff from your classroom as you can so that you have room in there to kind of breathe, to see what you actually need and what you have left. And it's a great time to sort of find things that you forgot about because you had things hidden all over the place. Just another thing you end up doing when you teach Title I for too long is like hiding your expo markers and always making sure that you have an extra ream of paper in the bottom drawer of your desk that nobody knows about. Because that day that the paper delivery doesn't show up and you told the kids they were having a test, you want to make sure you have the test. And there's just something about cleaning that out at this time of year, that spring cleaning feeling where you're like getting ready for the close of the year to be able to come back next year and not have all this old crap and junk in your room, but instead walking into something that's already been sort of gone through, and now you can fill it up with new, fresh supplies. All right, last tip, number 4. One of my favorite things to do at this time of the year is to write notes to students and to other teachers in the building whom I've appreciated this year, but maybe I haven't had a chance to say something to. Maybe they flew under the radar. Maybe the stress of the end of the year has left me unable to like pull that student aside, or the drama that's happened in school has left you unable to like have any time to go and meet with that teacher to tell them how much you appreciated whatever you heard or saw or witnessed. So to give you a few quick examples of that, we went on a class trip recently. We went to Great Adventure, Six Flags Great Adventure here in New Jersey. And to be honest, the trip was kind of unorganized, and when we were leaving we weren't even sure like who was the point person and what was going on. And so my friend Cho stepped up and organized it. Like, she made it her job to make sure that everyone got on a bus, everyone got where they were supposed to go, and everyone got there safely and then returned home safely. And I just appreciated that. But you know, you're on a trip, you don't have time to say thanks. Then you come home, you're making sure everybody has a place to go. I'm giving students rides home, and like, I just didn't have that moment to say that. And so that's something that I would just write a quick note to. Or my student Turtle, who many of you see on the live feeds on Sunday, just goes in there and puts a bunch of turtle emojis. Relax. Hey, it's a neighbor. Be good. Relax. Turtle's done a really great job this year. If you're watching this, you're kind of annoying in class sometimes, but I really like you, and I think you do good work, and I think you want to be a really great kid, and I want you to notice that. But in a class that is often a lot of knucklehead behavior, I don't always get a chance to shout those dudes out. And not everyone is always wanting to sort of take in a compliment face to face. It makes them feel awkward, or if they're shy or intimidated, it can be not as easy. But a note to someone or a short letter to someone, it's something that someone can go back to, something they can hold on to, something that they can get, they can read it when they are ready to read it, and it just injects a little bit of happiness and a little bit of optimism into what's commonly a pretty stressful time of the year. And that's it, everyone. If you wouldn't mind, what kind of like end of the year tips do you have for Bro, seriously? Jeez. Now I'm just laying on the ground by myself. What tips do you all have? If you could leave those in the comment section below. Maybe there's something you wish you knew in your first or third or fifth year of Seriously? Look at this dude. He's always watching, Wazowski. Anyway, gang, I appreciate you for doing that. And that's it. Peace.